Hello, thank you for joining this brief webcast covering the change to Sage 200 in response to the altered legislation for VAT and prompt payment discount. The webcast will have 5 sections. We'll talk about the background to the change, what is compliance to the new regulations, the likely impact on purchase processing. We'll walk through the changes made to Sage 200 2015, and finally we'll look at the situation with legacy versions. The full background of the legislative change can be found in Revenue and Customs Briefing 49, 2014. That was published in late December 2014. The changes themselves are effective from the 1st of April. The change was necessary because the Revenue felt they were losing out on their share of VAT when prompt payment discount was offered to consumers who rarely, if ever, took the discount up. The 2 invoices on the slide illustrate this nicely. Using the old rules, with £200 worth of goods and 10% prompt payment discount, the VAT was always £36, regardless of whether the discount was taken or not. Under the new rules, the original invoice shows the full amount of VAT, in this case £40, and the VAT is only reduced if the discount is taken. If the discount is taken, the rules offer 2 alternatives for the subsequent adjustment of the VAT. One option is to issue a full VAT-only credit note for the difference. The other option, and the one that we expect most people to take, will be to perform an internal VAT-only adjustment. But to do this, the original invoice needs to contain a particular set of words to make it clear that's what's going to happen, and also contain the relevant values to make the adjustment as well. Just some notes for you. If you have an invoice that you know has already been paid and the discount taken, before you begin to process it, you can actually record the lower amount immediately and avoid the need to do the adjustment altogether. The invoice generation processes in Sage 200 2015, 2013 and 2011 have all been changed to not only calculate the VAT based on the new rules when settlement discount is offered, but also to contain the appropriate wording on the invoice to avoid the need to issue a full VAT-only credit note after the event. The manual bookkeeping processes in the sales ledger and the purchase ledger both offer enough flexibility to cope with both situations. And that's particularly important on the purchase side because within the single purchase ledger you may find some suppliers who adopt one route and some suppliers who adopt the other route. Here's an example of the wording that HMRC give, that you must print on the invoice of the bill if you want to avoid the need to issue a formal VAT-only credit note for the difference. There's some additional text making it clear that no credit note will be produced, and there are also some additional values as well. Complying to the new regulations really boils down to being able to create invoices and bills with the correct VAT values on, and being able to print the correct text on those invoices and bills to avoid the need to issue subsequent VAT-only credit notes should the discount be taken. There are other routines in the system, such as recording purchase invoices, allocating transactions and generating payments, that are impacted by the change. But we need to remember that those routines all contain the ability to adjust any values generated by the system. However, to avoid the need to continually make those adjustments, Sage 200 2015 does contain adjustments to those processes so that the default values are calculated in accordance with the new rules. The new rules mean that processing a purchase invoice will be more complex than it used to be. It used to simply involve receiving the invoice, recording it, and paying it. And there were no subsequent adjustments to make if there was settlement discount on it and the discount was taken. Under the new rules, as illustrated on the right, when a purchase invoice arrives, it will need to be scrutinised to see if there is settlement discount on it. If there isn't, the old path still applies. If there is settlement discount on it, then the invoice will need to be examined to see what will happen should the discount be taken. Is the wording there to show that there's not going to be a credit note issued by the supplier, or in the latter of it, if those words aren't there, then we need to expect a credit note from the supplier if the discount is taken. What I'd like to do now is just walk you through some of the screens in Sage 200 2015 to show you how they've changed to accommodate the new rules. The first thing to point out is there's a new setting found within the system settings. It's right at the bottom there, apply new VAT rules. And that needs to be set after all of the invoices that need to be generated under the old rules have been generated, and before beginning to generate invoices under the new rules. So there's an element of organisation that needs to be carried out there. Here is the free text invoices form within the sales ledger. I've chosen this form because it's the simplest, but what I'm about to tell you applies equally to sales order processing and also the project accounting guide. You'll see in the bottom right hand corner of the form, this is an invoice for £1,000 worth of goods with 2.5% early settlement discount. The VAT is the full £200. The discount is £25, as you'd expect, 2.5% of 1,000. And we've also got that £5 VAT discount. Now that illustrates the amount of VAT that will need to be adjusted if this invoice is actually taken with the discount. You'll also find in Sage 200 2015 that VAT discount figure has been added to many forms and many reports to allow you to see exactly what the situation is when you're dealing with these invoices. I mentioned earlier on, the rules allow you, if you know that the invoice has already been paid and the discount taken, to actually process the invoice immediately with the lower amount of VAT. And that's the situation here. The payment received checkbox on the bottom left has been selected, and that has had the effect of reducing the VAT to £195. The discount remains the same, but there's no subsequent VAT adjustment expected because it's all built in to the original transaction as it's been posted initially. Here we can see the additional text that appears on the bottom of the invoice when it's printed. No credit note will be issued. Following payment, you must ensure that you recover only the VAT actually paid. And those additional values in terms of the net and the VAT if you take the settlement discount. When we come to pay that invoice and allocate the payment against it, we've also changed the action on double click of the invoice line as shown here, so that it now defaults to the value excluding the VAT discount, i.e. the amount you're going to allocate against the invoice now. Once that invoice has been paid through this process, we need to decide, are we going to process one batch credit note for the entire month for this customer covering all of the adjustments required, or are we going to post one manual credit note for each individual invoice where an adjustment is required? I guess both choices are valid, and the fact that the additional VAT discount field is present on a lot of the reports and a lot of the inquiries makes that job significantly easier. Moving to the purchase side, here's a purchase invoice form. Once again, it's the familiar £1,000 of invoice with 2.5% settlement discount. You'll see two additional checkboxes on this form. The one on the left, called Settle Immediately, is the mirror image of what we've just spoken about. It allows you to process an invoice using the old rules if you know at that point the invoice has already been paid and the discount taken. The second checkbox, labelled VAT Adjustment Document Expected, that is used to indicate whether or not the supplier is going to issue you with a formal credit note if you take the discount, or whether you must do the subsequent adjustment for the VAT yourself with an internal adjustment. And once again, that checkbox and its value is available in the reports and the inquiries, so you'll be able to very quickly spot the transactions where you need to carry out the manual adjustment, or the transactions where you need to wait for your supplier to send you that additional piece of paperwork. We've amended the payment generation process to take into account the new rules. Here's a payment generated for an invoice for £1,200 with that 2.5% discount on it. You'll see that the payment we're going to generate is for £1,170 plus the £25 discount, making £1,195 in total. Once again, that will leave us with the £5 VAT adjustment necessary to make at a later point, depending on what the supplier has indicated they will do in terms of credit notes, etc. So, that was a quick canter through what we've done with 2015. What about older versions of Sage 200? Well, those of you who use Sage 200 2013 or 2011 will have the facilities I've shown you for generating invoices with the correct values and having that additional text on the invoice. What you will not have in those versions are the changes to the allocation process and the payments generation process to take into account that VAT discount figure. Those values will need to be manually adjusted during allocation and during payment generation to take those values into account. Customers on 2009 and 2010 to offer settlement discount to their customers and who wish to generate invoices from the system need to upgrade to Sage 200 2015 to achieve that. Thank you very much for your attention throughout this. I hope that's been enlightening. If you have any queries, I would suggest that you send them to our usual support address, and I'm sure my colleagues will be happy to help you. Thank you for your time.